Alright guys, hope you're all keeping safe, hope you're all staying at home. Before we start today's video, thanks for all of your support guys, it really does mean so much to me. Today I've got a couple of news pieces including the raid exclusive exotics, along with some discussion feedback on the exotic news we got from Wednesday's stream. If you enjoy this one, drop a like down below, subscribe for dedicated Division 2 content, and let's begin. So to begin with, let's talk about the exclusive exotics coming with the Foundry raid. The second raid, hopefully coming soon. We don't actually have any news really as such on when the raid is coming out, but I suspect it'll be in the next couple of months, I imagine. Now, I've tried my hardest to actually find the images of both the Regulus Pistol and the Ravenous Rifle, which are the two exotics. And I've not been able to actually find them, even though I'm pretty sure the devs have showed them prior to when Warlords of New York went live. If I do find them during the editing of this video, I would include them here, so you know that I've found them. Now, how do I know they are the raid exclusive exotics? Well, recently someone put this exact question to Nikki Cuppins on Twitter, asking, hey, any news you can share on the last two exotic weapons, the Ravenous and Regulus, are they Raid 2 exclusives? To which Nikki responded saying, correct, we didn't get it onto the state of the game yesterday, but these are indeed not yet available. Now, it's important to note this because I've seen over the last couple of weeks on Twitter, Reddit, a lot of people have been asking where these are, right? Because they were shown in the kind of the streams and stuff prior to Warlords of New York, but no one's really found out where they were. I've seen people running missions for hours to try and find, you know, the secret to getting these exotics, like there may be some sort of puzzle in the game. But now we know they are not in the game yet, and they are going to be the exclusive exotics for the Foundry raid, hopefully coming very soon. Alright, so what do we know about these exotics? Well, we don't know a whole lot at the moment. I found this datasheet post on Reddit. It was actually posted by BitLinen, so all credit goes to them. Now, on this datasheet, they include data mine details about both of these exotics, which I kind of wanted to go over here. Now, of course, I don't know if these are accurate, but you'll see as we go through this that they appear to be fairly accurate. So the datasheet here includes all of the exotics given their descriptions and talents. Let's start with the Regulus Pistol, or the rat exotic, as people have been calling it, and I think that's based on the rat design on the actual exotic itself. It does look very very good. Again, link to the post of this from Reddit in the description down below. So the data mine description given to Regulus says, cast your stones at kings on thrones, but at the end rats gnaw our bones. And this was from Javier Kajika. That just sounds a bit ominous. Now, the talent for this weapon is called Regicide, and it says headshot kills deal 400% weapon damage and apply bleed to all enemies within 5 meters of the enemy killed. Now, again, I don't know if this is accurate for what the talent is going to be, but what I will say is if it is, please, no more status effects, certainly not in PvP. Now, depending on what the base damage is of this weapon, which the document seems to suggest at level 30, so this is obviously data mined information before Warlord's level increase. The base damage of this weapon, it says it's 282,072, with an RPM of 160, a magazine size of 6, and a reload time of 1.8 seconds. This means that based on the Liberty Exotic Pistol at level 30 comparatively, so pre-Warlords, the Regulus would do more damage faster, but with a smaller magazine size than the Liberty, which means it's going to be pretty much, I would say, probably, best in slot? Possibly, and certainly in terms of damage, if you consider that the actual talent as well, if that's an accurate representation of what it's going to be, the talent giving you that 400% extra damage, this is probably going to be the best in slot pistol in terms of damage. Now, the Liberty obviously gives you other buffs, but in terms of damage, this will probably be the best one. Now, guys, what do you think about this rat exotic? Now, moving on to the Ravenous Rifle, and this thing just looks crazy. I remember when I saw this, again, pre-Warlords, and it was only very briefly, but it just looks amazing. I think it's like a double barrel rifle, essentially. Now, it says here that the text for this weapon will read Jiri and Freki. I may have said that wrong. Hounds of Odin roam the battlefield eternal, greedy for the corpses of those who have fallen. Go forth, warrior of Odin, and hunt. Slake their first. Now, to me, there's no, it doesn't say who that's from. This doesn't come across as something that would be included in the game, if that makes sense. So it doesn't have any kind of Division 2 kind of feel to it. But I have to admit, when I read this, I love anything about the gods generally. So this text to me just sounded amazing. Now, the talents are as follows, and it's quite extensive, so we're just going to go through it here. It says Jerry and Frecky, on trigger pull, fire both barrels at once. When fired from the right shoulder, hits add offensive primers and defensive primers when fired from the left shoulder. Hits from one shoulder will detonate all the opposite shoulder's primers when present. When detonated, each offensive primer deals 75% weapon damage, while each defensive primer grants plus 2% bonus armor for 5 seconds. Primer effectiveness is doubled at 10 stacks. So if you can imagine, if you've got 10 stacks, what's that? If you're firing from the left-hand side and you fire twice, I presume that's going to be 10 stacks. Then your bonus armor would at that point go from 2% bonus armor 5 seconds up to 4%. And likewise with damage, it would be 150% weapon damage as opposed to 75%. Now, I'm just going to call this for what it is. It's the John Travolta exotic. You're just going to be twisting between right to left. I mean, you may even have a claim at the end of using this fairly interesting exotic of whiplash, is what I can imagine from this. Now, again, just reading the description here, I can already imagine there being some crazy builds that you guys are going to come up with, and it's going to be interesting to see if this does make it into the game, what you guys actually do. Again, let me know what you think below about both of these exotics. They are interesting. All right, moving on. And I was going to actually include the confirmation from Terry Spire about Red Storm no longer working on PvP, but I'm actually going to work on a script for a whole video on that one, kind of a whole video dedicated to PvP, or even more than one video dedicated to PvP and how the devs might be able to fix that. So instead, as I do every week on a Friday, here I briefly just want to give my feedback on the exotic reconfiguration and the other news from Wednesday's State of the Game. So, Exotic Reconfiguration, guys, what do you think? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you think it's good for the game? Do you not think it's good? If you do like it, what do you like? If you don't, what don't you like? Let me know down below, because it's interesting to see what the community think about this. Now, generally, I watch the stream on YouTube, so they completely, there's no chat, so I actually don't get to see what people have got to say. This is really my only opportunity. Personally, I like the reconfiguration system, figuration for system. I can't even say it for exotics. I mean, I'm not going to get much use out of it unless something changes, because exotics are so few and far between for me at least. But the system itself, I think, I think it's a good one. We've been asking for a way to ensure our exotics have a much better chance at getting higher rolls. Whilst there is still RNG at play here, having to get the actual weapon to drop and all that sort of stuff, we are being given more choice with the reconfiguration than before. Now, if they were just to go, look, you can just change one of the actual talents on it, one of the actual stats on it to get a higher roll, which would match high ends, I think that would maybe not be enough. But what they've done is they've made it so that it changes everything. Now, it does confirm that when you configure an exotic, there will be a pretty high minimum roll, which again is good news. There's still going to be a range of rolls, but it will be on the upper end. Another good piece of news was the ability to finally reconfigure level 30 exotics to level 40, and that all warlord exotics will be added as blueprints. That's very good news. Fortunately, I've actually got plenty of level 30 exotics that I didn't deconstruct for this very reason. I have to admit, I think the most controversial news to come from the stream was the change to exotic minimum rolls. And when they spoke about this, I know some people liked it. I know some people probably didn't like it. Now, the description of this change on the Reddit forum seems off compared to what Nikki Cuppin said, which was, regardless of difficulty, when an exotic drops, it'll always have the highest minimum stats. And that's to make the experience of finding one more enjoyable. That's what Nikki said. Now, what I got from this is that if you're playing on normal, where the chance to have an exotic drop is less than the difficulties above, and that chance is obviously tiered, you should see a significant increase in the lowest minimum roll compared to before, especially on lower levels, but it's still tiered in that difficulty, right? So you're going to have a higher minimum roll for everything, generally, okay? But there's still going to be tiers per level. Now, as you probably know now, I mainly play on challenging, or I play on heroic sometimes. And I found that exotic drops are generally not that great, even at these difficulties. So the news of having higher minimum rolls, almost universally, I think that's good news. Now, if this system means, you know, better rolls for people who are maybe not at the higher difficulty, again, I still think that's good, as long as there's a, you know, the minimum roll is higher than the lower difficulties. I think that's ultimately good news. But I have to admit, even if you're on normal and you get an exotic, it's not fair that you should get pretty much 0 stats. So I do think universally it did need to be increased. I think my biggest question to the devs is, and I've said this before, what do you want from exotics? Now, they started with random rolls. That's when they first come out. Then they became max rolls across the board at level 30 pre-Warlords, and now they reverted back to the random rolls system. There's also the question of power, and I don't want to go on this too much, but the devs said the exotics are not meant to be the most powerful things in the game, but offer a unique way to play the game. What do you guys think about that statement? I've seen various people say, well, if they're exotic, they should be the best. I've seen other people say, well, exotic doesn't mean the best. You know, if it was called legendary, that might mean the best. But exotic just means unique. If you look at something like Destiny, for example, there's plenty of exotics in that game that are not the best. They're just unique. They offer something different that you can't get anywhere else. And that's why they have lower drop chances. Now, I don't know what's right or wrong here. Personally, yeah, I really don't know what's right and wrong here, but I've seen both sides of the argument. I can see why people would say one thing and why people would say another. What I will say is that if the way they're going, if they want exotics to be something unique to the game and something that offers something unique rather than power, I think they need to work on that uniqueness, because there's a lot of exotics in the game right now, even though they're unique, they're not unique in a way that would make you use them, just because they're just so underwhelming. So I think that needs to be addressed, and they are meant to be addressing exotics and their kind of uniqueness and power with TU9. So let's see what they do about that. But that's it for today's video, guys. Thanks very much for all of your support. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. TU9 is coming out next Tuesday. I will likely have a video on Monday where I suspect we might get the patch notes, or it may even be Tuesday, but look out for that one. Until the next one, guys, Epic out.